Hi everybody, this is John from Incendium D&D, and I was just kind of going about my day as usual today when I got a notification that there is a new Unearthed Arcana available, UA 2022, and these are giant options. So we're going to be taking a look at some of the new stuff we've got. I'm going to give you my thoughts in terms of power balance and how interesting the options are. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. This is a 5-page UA, so pretty decent size. We're getting 3 subclasses for Barbarians, Druids, and Wizards, and we are also getting a whole bunch of feats, a lot of which, from purely skimming this, have prerequisites, making me think that there's going to be some of the more feat chaining that we saw, kind of like in the Dragonlance UA. I am going to let you guys know I did get to read the Barbarian subclass ahead of time, but other than that, I'm going in pretty cold. So let's see what we've got here. So first for Barbarian, we have Path of the Giant, very on theme. And for this, really the Barbarian's Rage is what triggers an increase in size. And we've actually already seen this with the Rune Knight. It's actually really interesting, because while I was reading through this initially, I remember that giant-themed subclasses is something that Wizards tried for a little bit. So for a while, there was a Giant Soul Sorcerer, which was kind of weird. Eventually, we landed on the Rune Knight, which is considered one of the most powerful fighter subclasses. And I always found it kind of odd that Barbarian wasn't one that, like, came up in play testing. So, you know, better late than never, I guess. Seeing what we actually get from it is, first, we get some kind of flavor features. So you get Giant as a language. You can take Druidcraft or Thaumaturgy. Nice little roleplay thing there. And then we also get Giant's Havoc. So this is really the key feature here. What it lets you do is that when you rage, thrown weapons also count for your bonus rage damage. So usually you only get to add your rage damage if it's a strength melee attack. However, this allows that rage damage to also trigger if you throw a weapon like a javelin or a dagger. The other thing that you get is if you're smaller than large, your size becomes large unless there's not enough room for you to become large. Overall, I think this is an okay ability. Remember, you're comparing this to Barbarian subclasses already in the game. So, Bear Totem, for example, at this point, you're getting resistance to all damage when you rage. Zealot Barbarian, you're getting a damage bonus, like you're getting an extra D6 necrotic or radiant damage. So in terms of basically getting a language and thaumaturgy, and you can also throw things, the thing about the fighter subclass is when you became large, you also got a damage bump with this. This isn't really a damage bump, it's just giving you, at this stage, rage damage is +2. You're getting a minor damage bump with another option. So the reason I found out about this subclass was the D&D YouTube channel released a video where Jeremy Crawford was specifically talking about this subclass. And one of the things he did mention is that usually with UA, they make it a little more powerful than what it's going to look like once it's finally through the design process. I like the idea of having a giant-themed barbarian that grows bigger. I really don't like this execution. I think that this is actually very underpowered and that there should be something else, like your giant stature should give you an extra D6 weapon damage or something. I think that just allowing you to add rage damage to your thrown weapons, on its own, this isn't as strong as some of the other Barbarian options we could get at this level. But moving on to a 6th level feature I actually really like is Elemental Cleaver. So for this one, when you enter your rage, you also infuse a weapon of your choice with a damage type, so acid, cold, fire, thunder, lightning. When you hit with that infused weapon, it deals an extra d6 of the chosen type. It also gains the thrown property. And if you throw the weapon, it reappears in your hand the instant after it hits or misses a target. So it becomes kind of like a Thor hammer. This I would actually like to see as the level 3 trait, where your character can grow large and you can now infuse a weapon to deal extra damage and be able to get it back. I just think that thrown weapon rage damage thing, I think it's a little too weak. But this is actually a really strong level 6 feature. a lot of the other Barbarian subclasses. I don't remember the 6th level feature. I remember the 6th level feature being a little bit more utility. Now, that being said, remember, you have to be at least a 6th level character to do this. So one of the things I like looking at when it comes to evaluating the power of a subclass, what features are you getting at what level? If this was a 3rd level feature, I would be all on board. This is a 6th level feature, meaning that, you know, a lot of other classes, like, say, Paladin is getting their Aura of Protection, and Fighter is getting an additional feat. Is this the same level of power as those things? I think it's pretty competitive. I really like the idea of giving the Throne property to your Great Axe, and giving it some more versatility in terms of range, and giving it more power in terms of damage. This is, to me, what saves the class. Also, remember, most campaigns will usually go between levels 1 and 10, meaning you're only using this for at most about the latter half of a campaign. Which brings us to the 10th level feature, which I think is like one of the coolest, and also I don't like that you wait until 10th level to get it. Mighty Impel. That took a while to say. As a bonus action while raging, you can choose one medium or smaller creature within your reach and move it to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of yourself. If it's an unwilling creature, it's got to make a strength save, usual things, 8 plus proficiency plus strength mod. If at the end of this movement, the thrown creature isn't on a surface or a liquid that can support it, the creature falls, taking damage as normal and landing prone. That's pretty neat. I really like the duality of this being both a control feature in terms of perhaps knocking an enemy prone. I also like the idea of this being a utility feature of kind of like that scene from Lord of the Rings where Gimli gets thrown, being able to move your allies in this very thematic, very memorable way, while also having some really strong utility behind it. I would actually love to take the 3rd level feature, the Giant's Havoc, take out the damage thing with the rage damage, put Mighty Impel there as the 3rd level feature. I think that you're going to see the most play from it. And I also think that the fact that you're basically able to grow large so you can, like, football pass your allies, I think that you see a lot more fun gameplay out of that. And I don't think it's super imbalanced either. I mean, 3rd level, you're giving casters 2nd level spell slots. A lot of them are taking Misty Step. They're using a bonus action to teleport anyway. Now, this doesn't require, this doesn't have like a limiter on it. You can just kind of spam this, and you have to be next to the creature that you're gonna be throwing. So, I don't know. I think that it's a really strong feature. Again, if you consider that on average, most campaigns are between levels like 1 through 10, this is going to be your capstone feature, and it's going to see the least amount of play in your average game. So I really like the feature. I just think you're getting it a little too late. And then the last one is the Demiurgic Colossus. So the whole flavor of this class, which I neglected to mention, is that your Barbarian might take after a Giant or a Titan. And Titans in D&D tend to be these apocalyptic entities. Titans were the antagonist in Princes of the Apocalypse. They were the Princes of the Apocalypse. So the idea being is that the higher in level you get, the more you're embodying these elemental giant qualities. So for the Colossus, when you rage, your reach increases by 10 feet. Oh, that was a thing. That was a thing here. Your reach increases by 5. Okay, I misjudged it. Anyway, the Colossus, your reach increases by 10 feet. Your size increases to huge. You can now use your Mighty Impel to move creatures that are large or smaller. So you're getting a boost to a previous feature. Always love that design unity where, you know, you're referencing things that you got at an earlier level. And the elemental cleaver damage increases to 2d6. Honestly, as far as capstones go, I think that's neat. You just get better versions of the things that were iconic to the subclass to begin with. Overall, the thing that worries me is how Jeremy Crawford said this is the powerful version and that the printed version would be less powerful. I would actually like to see some of these features moved around. And we've actually seen that before. I recall the Bard College of Creation in its Unearthed Arcana version. Its most iconic feature, the ability to animate objects around you to be almost like a pet, that was, I believe, the Capstone feature, the 14th level Bard feature. And when you see the subclass as it was printed, it was moved up to 6th level. So even though it was, I guess, a more powerful feature, you got it earlier. So that way you could have more builds and more play with the iconic part of the class. To me, I really like the elemental bonus damage, but it's this mighty impel. It's the being able to throw allies and enemies around the battlefield. That to me is the iconic feature of the subclass. It's the one that I'd like to see at level 3. The rage bonus damage thing, I just think it sounds stronger than it is. I think that we saw that with Storm Herald Barbarian, where it's like, ooh, I get a bonus 2 cold damage. Whoa! It sounds good until you're fighting creatures that have 60, 80, 100 hit points. That 2 damage, it's barely a scratch to them. So I think that it'd be neat to add the rage damage maybe at the 3rd level still, but moving up Mighty Impel for me is what would get me more engaged with this class. So moving on, as I use a mouse that isn't connected right now, we have the Druid Circle of the Primeval. Again, this kind of references the old gods, the titans, primeval spirits. It does reference dinosaurs, so I wonder if there's a D&D setting I don't know about that has a lot of dinosaurs besides Eberron as like one of its main things. I do like that this is basically the Druid Pet class. Usually Ranger with the Drake Warden and Beastmaster has been kind of the pet class of 5e. And Druids did get an additional option in Tasha's where they could use a wild shape use to conjure a familiar. This is like that, but the focus is on that interaction of having some kind of companion that your character's combat strategy revolves around. Looking at it, first, again, we get some flavor. So you gain proficiency in history, and when you make a history check, you can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to the ability check. It's kind of a neat thing I don't think we've seen, at least as far as I can remember off the top of my head, where you are the best at history because you also get this like always on bless when it comes to history checks. The thing that, I'm just going to say this now, this bugged me about Scout Rogue 2. I know Scout Rogue is not a very powerful subclass, but I really like taking it because I love the expertise in survival and nature. What I don't like is that this character, where obviously history is supposed to be one of their main proficiencies, it's what really kind of shapes the character's personality. As someone who optimizes, which isn't everybody, but again, this is actually the role player in me kind of thinking it through too. Like, this would mean if I'm looking to be a primeval druid, I would want to not have a proficiency in history so that I could get it once I level into this subclass. And it also, to me, starts to make this like weird disconnect between who my character was and who they've become. So for example, playing a Scout Rogue in a number of different campaigns, it would be basically like, oh, I've got 0 bonuses to nature and survival. But when I hit 3rd level, suddenly I've got like a +7 to both of those things. Narratively, it always didn't really make sense to me that all of a sudden, you know, I have a +0 to survival. Suddenly I can track anything like a master. So I really wish it was something like you gain a bonus proficiency, and also when you get a history check, you roll a d4. Because it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I guess you could have a story of like, oh, as a 2nd level druid, you've now absorbed the knowledge from the earth. But to me, the story makes more sense when you begin with a history proficiency, and that history proficiency becomes stronger now that you've gone into this subclass. Especially with, I played in a lot of games where you're leveling up mid-game. It's like it's not like there's downtime to explain the sudden training your druid just got between 1st and 2nd level. So it's just something to consider. That's a personal thing from me, and it's such like a little feature overall in this subclass to evoke that kind of criticism. But it is something to keep in mind that I really think that I don't mind subclasses granting additional proficiencies. I just have a problem when you're encouraged to not take certain proficiencies prior to selecting that subclass, and then suddenly your character flip-flops into having no proficiency to sudden proficiency. Moving on. So we've got the Primeval Companion. So again, you can use your Wild Shape use to summon your Primeval Companion within 30 feet of you. The companion is friendly to you and it obeys your commands. You can determine the cosmetic appearance. That's a big theme ever since Tasha's came out. The companion shares your initiative count, takes its turn immediately after yours. It can move and use its reaction on its own, but the only action it takes is dodge unless you take a bonus action to command it to take another action. Again, that's what we wanted Beastmaster to be originally, but it took us a little while to get there. And then once the companion is reduced to 0 HP or dies, it vanishes, and then you can summon the companion again. The other thing I like, the way I do this for my world with things like this, I think the new Beastmasters kind of like this too, is you actually have the companion on you at all times, but the Wild Shape use digivolves it into something useful. So let's say it's like a little lizard that's on your shoulder, right? When you use your Wild Shape, the Wild Shape is actually transforming the lizard from the little tiny creature that hangs out on your shoulder to a combat-ready version of it that's medium-sized and gets bigger, you know, as we go through the subclass. The game statistics for this follow the usual thing where the higher your proficiency bonus and the higher your level gets, its stats grow with you. Awesome design, I really dig it. So it's hit points, it's armor class, it's saving throw bonuses, it's to hit bonuses. All those things are going up as your druid levels up. And in addition, at 6th level, when you cast a spell with a range other than self, the spell can originate from you or your Primeval Companion. Again, this is something you get normally with the Familiar, but the Familiar is not going to have the same survivability your Primeval Companion's going to have. So, and what's cool about this is, especially as you get really high in level, like let's say you want to cast Sunbeam, well now you can Sunbeam through your companion. So there's some interesting tactical play that you can get from this one. And in addition, if the companion's affected by a spell you cast that allows creatures to make a saving throw, the companion has advantage on its saving throw. So, if the companion would normally take half damage on a successful save against this spell, it takes no damage on a successful save and half damage instead. So my guess is, if your companion is caught in an AoE that you cast, it's more protected. So you can feel free to cast more AoEs without harming your companion as much. Interesting, I don't know how often that's been coming up in other pet classes, but it's nice to see that it's addressed. 10th level, the companion grows to large size when you summon it. You can also grant it climbing or swimming speed. And then you also get a fear effect here. So once per turn, when your companion is summoned, when you hit a creature with an attack or deal damage to a creature you can see with a spell you cast, you can force it to make a wisdom save against your spell save DC, and on a failure, that creature's frightened. It's kind of neat, especially when you get other classes like the Conquest Paladin. That one has a lot to do with additional things that happen to creatures that are frightened. There might be some cool interplay with those effects. I can't exactly remember Conquest Paladin, but you know. And then the Capstone, the 14th level. Again, remember that the most valuable feature should be earliest. So far for this one, I see that as being the case. Unlike the Giant Barbarian, I think that this one is actually in mostly a correct order. I don't think that any of this, I wouldn't reorder any of this. But the Capstone is Scourge of the Ancients. So as part of the bonus action you use to command your companion, you can expend a spell slot of any level. And what this does is the companion becomes huge and gains temp HP equal to 10 times the level of the spell slot you expended. Or on a hit, it deals additional damage equals to 1d8 plus the level of the spell you expended. Or it gets walking speed increased by a number of feet equal to 5 times the level of the spell slot. Honestly, I don't think I would ever use above a first or a second spell slot to do any of these things. And it's nice to see that it's referencing the class's base mechanics in its subclass design. Overall, I think that this is a pretty strong Druid subclass. We've actually also seen a pet class in the Wildfire Druid. I don't really see this being weaker or stronger. I think that this is just right. I don't even think this needs really any editing. I kind of like it as is. But, you know, we'll see what the feedback looks like, and we'll see how the design team responds. So, moving on. For Wizard, we have the Rune Crafter.
I will rain hellfire upon you.
So, this is one I haven't seen at all yet. Rune Crafter wizards enhance their spellcasting through runes. For many rune crafters, the runes they wield are as every bit unique and personal as their spellbook. They write runes. So first, we have studied runecraft to unlock the ability to decode runes and languages. You always have comprehend languages prepared. You can cast it without expending a spell slot, and it doesn't count against the number of spells you have prepared. It's actually kind of neat. There's been a few times I've been either a player or a DM where comprehend languages has come up. The 10-minute casting time to cast it as a ritual can kind of be annoying for the flow of the narrative, and I do think that it's thematic to have comprehend languages available to a class based on carving ancient languages. So you also learn how to amplify your magic through the application of runes. You determine the rune's cosmetic appearance. Interesting. When you cast a spell using a spell slot, you can invoke one of the following runes. So life is choose a creature you can see within 30 feet of you. The chosen creature gains temp HP equal to 5 times the level of the spell slot expended. Can you just do this all the time? Oh, you can invoke no more than 1 rune per spell. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. Okay. And you might want to save, it looks like a lot of these, or at least this first one, scales with the level of the spell slot you use. So you might want to save it for when you do your really big spell, like you cast Disintegrate or something big. The War Rune, choose a creature you can see within 30 feet of you. Until the end of your next turn, attack rolls that target the chosen creature gain a bonus to half the level of the spell slot expended, minimum of +1. That's pretty neat. It's pretty powerful. And last is the Wind Rune. So when you invoke this one, your speed increases by a number of feet equal to 5 times the level of the spell slot expended, and your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. Honestly, I think the most significant of these is the Life Rune. Wizards are extremely versatile, and not a lot of them can just have this ranged temporary hit point type of thing. So just that ability of being a wizard that can grant temp HP, basically a proficiency bonus number of times per long rest, coupled with a powerful spell, your most powerful spell to get the maximum effect. This is a pretty powerful feature right out of the gate. I don't dislike it. I also think that wizards started as the most powerful class in 5th edition, and whenever there's new spells that come out, the wizard always has access to them. And I wouldn't mind limitations on the kinds of spells that wizards can learn. Adding in a healing effect to the wizard's repertoire, it's a bit much, and I don't dislike it. I just think that the other classes need a little bit more oomph, so that the wizard isn't just the obviously best choice to go with. Sigils of Warding, you can call on a rune of protection to guard yourself. When you fail a strength, dex, or con save, you can use your reaction to expend one of your Runic Empowerments and succeed on the save instead. That's pretty neat. I just really like that feature. I think that the wizard is probably the most vulnerable class in terms of survivability features that it has, and I like seeing little things like this that can actually be a big game changer. So, for example, failing a dex save against a Disintegrate spell from an enemy caster. It's really good to succeed on those. So, and I like that it creates this additional pool of a type of resource that you can expend. So in this case, the Runic Empowerment. Rune Maven at 10th, your understanding of runecraft has grown. When you use your Arcane Recovery, you also regain a number of expended Runic Empowerments. The number of uses you regain can be no more than half your intelligence modifier rounded up. I really like when recovery features kind of feed into each other. So again, we're referencing a base feature from Wizard, the Arcane Recovery. Just getting a little bit more use out of it because, again, we have this additional type of resource we can expend now. So our capstone here is Engraved Enmity. So as a bonus action, you can target one creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself. The creature has to succeed on a wisdom save against your spell save DC or be magically marked by an enmity rune. There's some cosmetics for it. The options we get for the enmity rune are Runecraft's Bane. So the creature has disadvantage on saving throws made against spells you cast. The radiance of the rune makes the creature visible if it's invisible, and the creature can't become invisible while the rune persists, so like a light fairy fire effect. When you mark the creature, and as a bonus action on subsequent turns, you can invoke the enmity rune to curse the creature until the start of its next turn. The next time one of your allies hits the cursed creature with an attack roll, the target also takes 1d8 force damage and the curse ends. So with that one, you can use your bonus action, I think, to continually curse the creature as long as the effect is going. And the feature lasts for a minute or until you lose your concentration as if you're concentrating on a spell. Ooh, I think that also means that you can't have this up and be concentrating on a spell to begin with, if I'm reading that right. That kind of limits its use a little bit. Also, this is playing with the wizard's action economy a little more. I don't see a lot of wizards using their bonus action frequently, so it is kind of nice to see something that takes full advantage of it, especially as you get higher in level. Once you marked a creature in this way, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend a spell slot of 3rd level or higher to use this feature again. Overall, I actually really like the Rune Crafter now that I've gotten through the whole thing. I think that, again, it gets its heaviest hitting feature first. The Runic Empowerment definitely sets up the features for the rest of the build. And I think even things like Rune Maven, Engraved Enmity, they aren't huge, but they are reinforcing kind of a core mechanical theme. So this brings us to our Feats section here. So as we see, we've got a good number of feats. A lot of them have prerequisites of one kind or another. And I actually think I'm going to bounce around. I'm going to use this little table. I'm going to kind of go in order so that way, you know, I'm not talking about the 8th level feat before we're talking about the lower level feats, because I have a feeling that these are going to be feat chains. So looking at some of our feats here. First, we have Elemental Touched. You've been exposed to primordial magic of the elemental planes. You learn Druidcraft or Thaumaturgy. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can choose which element you're attuned to. Depending on your choice, you can use a bonus action to cause one of the following effects. So this might have some overlap with the Giant Barbarian, just because of the whole Druidcraft thing. But let's see. So if you're air elemental touched, you gain a fly speed equal to your walking speed until the end of your turn. If you're airborne at the end of this, unless you are held aloft by another means, you fall. Kind of nice, just bonus action, get a quick fly speed, like an airbender. Earth, you cause the ground within 30 feet of you to become difficult terrain for a minute, or until you create this effect again. During that time, you can move across the ground that is difficult terrain without spending extra movement. Oh, you can just do these as a bonus action. Fire, you're surrounded in a cloud of ash and smoke until the end of turn. Your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. Oh no, this you can only do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. I should have known. And then water, forceful surge of water directed at a creature within 15 feet of you. The creature must succeed on a strength save against a DC equal to 8 plus spellcasting ability modifier plus proficiency bonus. The water vanishes immediately after the creature succeeds or fails. Do you know what this feels like to me? This feels like they looked at 4 Elements Monk and they said, I guess. So I love the fact that this is a feat. You could be a fighter with these traits. You could be a barbarian with this feat. I think that this is really kind of what they were going for the 4 Elements Monk to begin with. Also, looking at, you know, a lot of people compare 4 Elements thematically to Avatar: The Last Airbender. And when you look at Avatar, yes, the bending styles are based off real-world martial arts, but they're not the same kind of characters. Like, there are some more brutish earthbenders. There are also some, like, slighter framed earthbenders, like Toph. For airbenders, you know, you could have kind of like lankier airbenders, you could have buffer airbenders. So the idea that every bender, quote unquote, has to be a monk to begin with, because monks are the martial arts class, I think that this is a much more elegant design way to go about it. I also think that this is a more elegant narrative way to go about it. So you could be, say, a fire genasi fighter and pick up this fire elemental touched feat and be able to surround yourself with a bonus action in a cloud of smoke. There's just so much. This is so much better. And even though you can only do it a proficiency bonus number of times, I like the idea of any class having a strong bonus action that's not overpowered. Even the wizard we just talked about, the rune carver, you know, being able to make the ground within 30 feet of you difficult terrain, that can stop a lot of melee enemies from just getting to you. So this is a really neat thing that I really like seeing. So that's gonna bring us to outsized might. Let me pop around a little bit. You've absorbed primeval magic that allows you, despite your relatively small stature, to embody the might of titanic creatures. So you have proficiency in athletics or acrobatics. You have the powerful build trait, so you count as one size larger for carrying things. And you have advantage on saving throws against being moved or knocked prone. Yeah, that's neat. I like it. I think that it's not the most amazing feat I've ever seen, but I've definitely known my fair share of, say, like, casting characters that may not have a super good strength. Getting outsized might and just getting that powerful build might actually be pretty helpful in creating an unorthodox but useful, versatile character. And then the last of our ones, Rune Carver Apprentice, which is the next one. You've been studying the art of runecraft, which allows you to temporarily mark your items and imbue them with magic. When you finish a long rest, take a non-magical weapon, armor, piece of clothing, other object. You can put a rune on it. You temporarily learn one first-level spell based on the rune you choose as specified in the rune spells table, and you know the spell until you finish a long rest when the rune fades. Is there more rules for this? When you're wearing or carrying the rune-marked object, you can cast the chosen spell with the rune once without using a spell slot or material component, and you can also cast the spell using any spell slots that you have. And then you can choose your spell casting ability for it. I've played in games with the magical tattoos before, and looking at some of these options, this is kind of what I feel like a lot of DMs look for in magical tattoos, which was released in Tasha's. These act a little bit differently. They're basically like bonus spells that you can put on. And just kind of looking at the options, a lot of them are pretty good. So Guiding Bolt, just giving Guiding Bolt to any character that can cast spells, like, that's pretty awesome. Good Cure Wounds, like, you can give your wizard Cure Wounds. But again, this is a character class agnostic feat. So you're really creating a lot of different options for every character class to be able to use. So, you know, these are all pretty neat spells just to begin with. Oh, shield. Just giving everybody shield, like, as a feat. I mean, I guess that you already did that with the Magic Adept, or the Magic Initiate, sorry. But still, that's pretty cool. Oh, and Heroism, just being able to pop Heroism just cause. That's pretty neat. I really, really, really like this one. All right, let's look at our next one. So our first 4th level feat is Fury of the Frost Giant. So we have a few giant themed ones. You get resistance to cold damage. When a creature hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to retaliate. So they have to succeed a wisdom save or be frightened. You can use your reaction in this way a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. Pretty strong, just to be able to give that to anybody, give them a reaction. I've actually been kind of noticing this actually as a design trend, and I'm kind of into it. The base class and features mostly have to do with action movement, but these feats are about granting additional action economy options like reactions and bonus actions. I kind of dig that. I've played in a lot of games where, say, you're playing a spellcaster like a druid or a wizard. You go to use your highest level spell slot, you try to force an enemy to make a save, they succeed. You feel like you kind of wasted your biggest thing. And that's like the only thing you can do on your turn because of the rules of spellcasting. So I like this idea that you can have a reaction. Like, you can give any class shield. I really like that one. You have this bonus action, the elemental touched bonus action, just to be able to finely tune your character's action economy, not for power necessarily, not for min-maxing or what usually people will get all mad about, but just to create interesting, versatile characters that don't feel stuck doing one thing. I think that a lot of times when people hear power gaming, they get a certain idea in their head about what that means. To me, power gaming, like optimizing a character, a significant part of that is just getting them to be able to do different things with their action economy, which is why a lot of times conversations with players that don't identify as min-maxers or optimizers, the conversation can get kind of like stuck, because they'll be like, oh, well, I want a character that just has a good theme, a good story. But then it comes to things like, are they more fun to play? Like, when you do your action, you're just doing less, right? I can create a character with the same theme, with the same story, but I get to do more during combat because I've thought through what they can do as a bonus action and what they can do with their reaction, action, movement. So you just have a more fun character because you just get to do more stuff. So not necessarily more powerful. It's not always like eking out every point of damage or whatever, but sometimes optimizing is just optimizing your turn so that you can just do a lot of fun stuff. And I really like these feats for that. I think that they really capture that design aspect. They're not necessarily more powerful, but they do give you things to use your full action economy. Anyway, keenness of the stone giant. So first you get Detect Thoughts and one first level spell of your choice. That is from Abjuration or Divination. Everyone's taking Shield. Once you cast either of these spells in this way, you can't cast that spell until you finish a long rest, like normal. You also just get Dark Vision. And if you already have Dark Vision, its range increases by 30. Cool. I think there's definitely been plenty of builds where I'm like, if only I had Dark Vision. And Detect Thoughts and a bonus Abjuration spell, not too shabby. Rune Carver Adept, the feat chain from my favorite one so far. Oh, and it's so short. When you finish a long rest, you can now mark a number of objects equal to your proficiency bonus with a rune from the Rune Carver Apprentice feat. When the Dragonlance UA came out, I had some mixed thoughts on feat chaining. That one's kind of cool. You're not getting the ASI as quickly, like you're not getting a maxed out stat. But before, the feat options were more power gamey to begin with. These are just kind of cool. I'm into it. And then last, the Vigor of the Hill Giant. So when you're subjected to an effect that would move you at least 5 feet or knock you prone, you can use your reaction to steady yourself. You are then neither moved nor knocked prone. Cool! Actually, I like that one. When you're subjected to a spell that restores your hit points, you can regain an additional number of hit points equal to your con modifier. You can regain these additional hit points a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. The thing I like to remember about this one, there's been talk about maybe in the new edition, part of your background for all characters is that you get a bonus feat. And in the Dragonlance UA, the revised one, there was like a limited number of different bonus feats you could get based on your background. But this would be a good example of, I like the fact that there's a prerequisite, knowing that everyone's going to get a bonus feat at first level, at least theoretically. Also, I really like how, even within this document, some of these feats can be planned to work together. So for example, you're looking at Rune Carver for one of your characters. You take Cure Wounds, right? And then Hardy Health works well with Vigor of the Hill Giant. Maybe you give that to your Giant Barbarian. They get the most out of that healing spell that you prepared with your feat. So it's just that there are some new team combinations that can come up. Some neat little interactions. Alright, so that was really the only feat chaining one, I guess. Because really this is just tiered based on the giants. I could have read it first, but, you know. Ember of the Fire Giant. Resistance to fire damage. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of your attacks with a burst of flame. Each creature of your choice within 15 feet of you that you can see must make a dex save. On a failed save, they take fire damage equal to 2d6 plus your proficiency bonus and is blinded until the start of your next turn. It's half damage, not blinded on a success. You can use your Searing Ignition a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. It's not bad. For an 8th level character, 2d6 plus proficiency bonus isn't amazing damage. Blinded is kind of cool, so basically an AoE blind effect with a little bit of damage. Again, that's a great setup for other characters that can take advantage of that, say like a rogue to trigger their sneak attack. Cloud Giant, so you can cast Blur. It's a bonus spell, very cool. And proficiency in Deception or Persuasion. And your proficiency bonus is doubled for that ability check, so it's like an expertise. Cool. And then the last one is Storm Giant. So as a bonus action, you surround yourself in an aura of magical wind and lightning that extends 10 feet from you in every direction, but not through total cover. Remember, if you combine this with, say, Rune Knight or Giant Barbarian, when you become large or huge, that aura becomes exponentially greater. So it's just something to keep in mind as you're building your characters. The aura lasts for 1 minute, or unless you're incapacitated. While the aura is active, attack rolls have disadvantage, and whenever a creature starts its turn within the sphere, you can force that creature's speed to be halved. Once you use this bonus action, you have to wait for a long rest. And you can also cast Divination as a ritual. Neat. So overall, honestly, the one thing I would just be about, I know that this is supposed to be a giant themed UA, and I know that these feats are named after giants. I don't think you need the giant label. Like, if you're, say, like a fire... No, Elemental Adept is already a feat. If you're a fire warrior, like, I think that where... And I've seen this before. Some DMs and players get stuck on the name of something that they don't consider the possibilities of the mechanics. So I could see building a character where I would want this Ember of the Fire Giant because it's just a neat feature. And they're like, well, how do you know about giants? Giants aren't in my world. Well, just ignore the name of it for a little bit. I actually like when mechanics in the game are a little bit more generic, and instead it's up to the player to flavor and customize their appearance and their utility. Then again, I think that there are some other players that really appreciate the legacy of D&D. It makes them feel included in a particular community. Overall, Barbarian subclass, the giant one, I like all the features. I just think they need to be rearranged. The Druid and the Wizard subclasses, good to go in my book. I actually really like them. And the feats, I really like these feats. I really like that rune carving one. I think that that's super neat. And I like that there's an adept version that makes it just better. So, yeah, this gets the thumbs up from me. But I want to know your thoughts. Did you like this Unearthed Arcana? What kind of book do you think is going to come out of this? Is there going to be a Storm King's Treasury of Giants? God, I hope not. So let us know in the comments down below. If you like this video, remember, let YouTube know. Give us a like, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Have an awesome day, everybody, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye now.